All right, Jason Rona back here in the JConcepts garage again, here for part 2 of our question and answer period. We got one of the first comments here is Kirby Hand and Gotti Jr. saying that they really like my cover picture, so I appreciate that. Nice to have you guys as fans, and thanks for noticing. We got Chris here with a question. It says, with all the crossover sponsorships, when teammates are involved, how do you determine the loyalty to a sponsor when a teammate is driving for someone else? So Rivkin and Mayfield both run for JC, but have different chassis sponsors. Does the chassis sponsor take priority? How would you rank component sponsors following the chassis sponsor? I think for us, the loyalty comes with the drivers that are the most loyal to us. So from that standpoint, I think that we're definitely loyal to anybody that, no matter what brand of vehicle that they're driving, as long as they're loyal to us and good with us. If they have been, then we're loyal to them, and we help them as much as possible when they're on the team. So I think when the drivers are racing each other in a race, and they're running for separate chassis sponsors, they're definitely going to be going for it regardless. I don't think nobody's going to be holding back, trying to help one driver over another. In terms of a Spencer and a Mayfield, you're not going to see those guys trying to stage a race to help a JConcepts driver win. I think that they're going to try to win themselves and do the best that they can, and I think that's kind of what we can expect. In terms of where do you rank the component sponsors, to me, I think that the chassis sponsors are usually ranked first because for these drivers, they typically pay them a salary that's the most, and they pay for their travel. So with those two numbers equal, has the greatest influence on their racing program, and I think that's why they're listed as the number one. I think there probably was a time where people thought that the chassis manufacturer was always listed first, or the major sponsor, because the car is the most important. And I don't really think that's the case. I think now it's more based off who's supporting you the most or paying for your travel. I think that's your major sponsor. In our case, I think I think that the tire and the accessory manufacturer should be second, the battery and motor company third, and then your electronics, and then on down the line from there. I think that it could be argued that the tires are probably the most critical part of any racing that you're doing. And if you have a tire advantage, you're at a huge advantage. And so somebody that would want to say that I think there's a lot of electrical that you could run. I think there's a lot of engines that you could run. And I think there's a lot of car manufacturers that you can run. But having the best tire at that particular event is really valuable. And I think it should be higher ranked than it really is, probably. I think over the years, people have always ranked them, chassis, motor, battery, accessories, and tires. But I think really it's more like chassis, tires, accessories, motor, battery, electronics, that type of thing. So we'll see if things change in the future, but I think you'll notice with our drivers that the JConcepts logos are always big and well represented, and that's what we look for. Alex K, we'll call him. He's like, have you ever kissed a girl? I think this comes from when he had this question asked to him at the Reedy race. The answer is yes, Alex. And I believe your answer was yes. We have next page here. Dalton Fields is asking, how does one RC? Which to me, that means if you buy an RC car, then I think you're RCing. If there's maybe RC means something different to you, but to me, that's what it is. So John Dash is asking, if you were to give advice to an up-and-coming driver regarding driving techniques or discipline, what specific area or skill would you suggest that they focus on? I think first of all, you have to run the most difficult cars to drive. So if you're going to consider, to me, that's a two-wheel drive buggy. If you can master the two-wheel drive buggy class, you can pretty much race any off-road car. So I think number one, you choose the hardest car to drive and you try to master it on many different conditions. The best drivers to me are the guys that are the most flexible. If the track is loose, they can drive the car when it's loose. If the track is high grip, they can drive it when it's high grip. They are they can adapt to their situation better than everybody else. And in order to do that, you have to run on a lot of different tracks and understand that you have to change your driving style and what you're doing depending on the track and the condition. I think there's right now people think, not everybody, but there's people tend to think that you can dial these cars in so magically that when there's no traction, you can look like you're pulling wheelies, and when there's a ton of traction, you can just look like an on-road car. But the reality is it still comes down to the driver, and you have to be able to adapt to that condition. If it's loose, you run the best tire you can run, and you run a setup that you know is comfortable, and you have to drive it like that. And then usually things will change. If it gets high grip, then you have to be able to adapt. So if you can do those things when you're racing, that's what makes you a good driver. To work on that, you have to go to different tracks and experience different things. You can do that in your area. You can do that by traveling, indoors, outdoors, whether you're running slicks, treaded tires, you're running pin tires, bar tires. You get all those experiences in, and you add them together, and then that's what makes you a really complete driver. So I think in answering the question is it's about experience and running those different tracks and conditions, and not really getting psyched out in terms of how you're doing that day. You can't just fall off the map because you're loose that day. You have to adapt to it and learn how to change your style, and lots of times you have to do that qualifier to qualifier. You'll watch these guys that are really, really good. Even when we race the Super Cup, if the track is high traction, we drive like there's high traction. If it's loose, we drive like it's loose. And we make the necessary driving adjustments or the tire adjustments to make sure that we're fast. So that'd be the best thing, is learning with the experience and knowing what you're capable of and being realistic. We got Jeff Kaplan asking if where we see the industry going in terms of the surface that we race on. He's asking if we will ever see it going back to actual dirt and not high grip tracks for buggy. And I'd say the answer is no. I don't think that we're ever going to go back to where we're running on a black dirt topsoil kind of track. I think we're always going to be on some type of a clay, hard packed, something that's the goal is to get good traction. You might not start off with good grip, but you're wanting to get there with the track or whatever they're going to do. I think that what we've learned over time is people don't want to work on the tracks. They want to do whatever is the easiest. The easiest is to put in a track that you can maintain very easily and quickly, get the races going, get them through, and you get the club racing or your regional level event over with. I think the days of having these work parties outdoors to water the track, to manicure everything perfectly, I think is few and far between, because we don't have the volunteers that we used to. We used to have a lot of clubs in the old days. We used to have a lot of group activity to get together and build and work on these tracks, and we don't have that anymore, or as much. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more prepared tracks. We're going to see more carpet, more AstroTurf, more prepared dirt, and I think that's what we're going to see more and more over the years. And people are going to have to adapt. If they want to keep racing, they're going to have to adapt to that. If not, then people are going to have to get together and start their own tracks and clubs and come together on building nice outdoor tracks where they can maintain them the way they want. And I'm open to that too. but everybody has to be realistic and say that they're either in or they're out in terms of helping a track getting going that's trying to prepare their track that way. If they're not prepared to go and help and build tracks and water and work on it, then it's never going to happen. So, but I think in general, being realistic, I think we're going to see more of what we have now, and the cars are just going to get faster and faster in terms of their performance and how they look on the track, and I think we're going to see more of that. We got Chili Duncan asking why racers still spell JConcepts instead of having the J and the C together versus having a dash. Well, I think that they want to see it as J and concepts, so they put the dash in it. I think we put it together just because I thought it looked better. There was a time where there was some decals there was we had a space between it, so it's pretty funny. But thanks for pointing that out. Ryan Heckman is asking if I lift, and that's no. Joshua here, the same question he asked earlier, we got to him already. We got Gary O'Brien, who's kind of has sort of a statement almost and a question, and he's asking why sponsored drivers, regardless of who they're sponsored by, think they're entitled and are above everybody else. So this gets a little difficult. He's asking why won't these drivers club race more and support their local track and get involved? Probably because they feel that if it's a business, that it's not their responsibility to be a part of the maintaining and the get-together and that type of thing. I don't think that this is a sponsored driver problem. I think this is a people problem. When people feel that it's not theirs or not their business, then they stay away and they only do it. They pay their $10 or $20 to race and they're out of there. If it's a club atmosphere or it has a club feel, then I think people are going to get together and feel like they're donating their time and they're putting the time in. I don't think this is a sponsored driver thing. I think because it's a racer and a people thing. It's just something that we have to get around. And I know exactly what you're talking about in your question here. I wish we could figure it all out, but in terms of, I think we're in a state where people feel that it's more fun to complain or say they don't like it or have a difference of opinion on how things should be run. But I think at the end of the day, people need to realize that, if they don't have these tracks or these places to race, then they need to, then they won't be able to race at all. So they're going to have to support something. They're going to have to come together and support what they have. And I think what you have to do is you have to call these guys out and just say, hey, what are we going to have to do to get you more involved? Whether they're sponsored or not, I think doesn't make a difference. I think what you have to do is confront people privately and just say, hey, I want to put it together. I want this to be good. Let's get everybody together and let's make sure we're having fun. So I think that's the only way to really do it. We got Aaron Biner asking if the 96 Bulls versus the 15-16 Warriors, he's asking who would win both sets of rules. So I'm guessing he's talking about the rules from the 90s versus the 2000. I got the Bulls here. I'm kind of biased. That was my favorite team, but I got the Bulls over the Warriors easily because one, you got Jordan on the Bulls, you got Scottie Pippen on the Bulls, you got Dennis Rodman on the Bulls, you have Tony Kukoc, Ron Harper. I think that five beats any five the Warriors can put out there at any time. I think the strength of the Warriors is offense. I think the strength of the Bulls is defense. And I think that in the end, the Bulls would hold them to limited scoring. And I think in the end, when you needed that game winner or the guy that can score down the stretch, you have the Jordan. And I don't think you're going to stop him. So, and then on the other end, you have Pippen and Jordan that could guard Curry and Klay Thompson. And I think it's game over. Pete Phillips is asking if I still have fun when I race, or does the business side overrule the hobby side? I think I still enjoy racing a lot, actually. Sometimes maybe more than I used to, in terms of it's nice to be out with everybody and nice to be with the guys and in the pits and wrenching and driving your own cars. We spend a lot of time at races helping and supporting where we don't get to drive. So I think the times where we're actually racing and competing ourselves it's actually really fun. You have a different perspective. You still want to win all the time. That's my focus when I race locally, but you have to be realistic and do the best you can. So we still have a lot of fun. What do we have? Going into my Instagram questions from the RC network, it's you seem to race a lot, and of course it's considered working being the owner of JConcepts. How do you balance the work, fun, and personal life outside of the hobby? Well, it's pretty tough to do that. I think it's all kind of scrambled together, so you have to kind of make it work, make them work together. Sometimes we try to turn work trips into some personal trips, but in the end, if it's a vacation, I still find myself, we went on vacation, I think it was 2 years ago, and I still find myself doing everything RC. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where you are. You're still always doing RC, because I think it's when you have a passion for something, you're always wanting to interact with it. We got Evan J. Awesome asking, how did you start the business and what drove you to make JConcepts? Well, I guess it was because my RC racing career was ending, and I had a experience in design and development in RC, and we used that to make a body in a car. I raced the World Championships in 2003. I made the A-Main at the Worlds with our first body, and I was 12th qualifier with the BJ4, our first four-wheel drive buggy. And I didn't really intend on starting a company, but we got a lot of requests, a lot of people asking for the product that they saw, and that's kind of how it started, and just went full commitment to it. And everything's been going extremely well, and it's a lot of work, but it's been really rewarding too. So that's basically what drove us. Is you kind of end in one thing, and then you got to start into something else. And the manufacturing is a passion that we have here, and passion that I have. So it's been fun. Getting asked here, what do we typically look for in drivers? This is a multiple part question, I guess, but it used to be outright speed and performance. Now it comes down to how great of a representative you are. Are you active on social media? Are you race report? Are you somebody that puts in race reports? Are you somebody that respects your sponsors and represents them all the time? So now I think it's almost, you go to the top of the food chain. There's guys that are sponsored because they're the best. They can deliver. They get everything. Then you go down from there. There's the guys that are very good regionally, locally. And then there's the guys that are good drivers, but they're club level, usually fast on a club level, but they're also really good supporters. They push the product, they talk to people, and they help people. So I think that's what we're looking for: performance, your ability to promote, the ability to direct people to the right thing at the right time, and just having a good attitude and liking RC, and being in the right place at the right time never hurts. Getting seen or scouted by one of our people that's really impressed always helps. Then we got our last question here is, back when you were racing as a driver, do you think it was difficult to earn a sponsorship from a big factory team? Do you think guys like Spencer and Ryan have it easier or harder than we did? Well, it was definitely harder to be sponsored in those days because, like I mentioned earlier, it used to be about outright performance. and you had to be able to perform at a level to notice people. Back then, we didn't have the forums and social media and stuff, ways to be noticed. Back then, it was just, you got to make it to a big race, you got to do as well as you can, and maybe somebody will notice you, and that's what happened. I think one of the hardest sponsors I ever got as a racer was Novak Electronics. I had to TQ the Reedy race in the open class and four-wheel drive before I was offered a sponsorship from Novak. And I was already an associated and Reedy driver at that point, but it was still really hard to get a Novak sponsorship. So, TQing at the Reedy race did it for me at that point, but I think if you went on driving standards, how I was driving when I probably first got into RC racing, I drove these things a lot in my backyard, which got a lot of skills, but when I was racing, when I first started driving, I think my skills, talent-wise, if we went by today's standards, I would probably be a sponsored driver the second time I ever raced, because I could get the car around the track really well. I was fast. I was already a club level winner, and but back then you were just a club driver, and you had to TQ the Reedy race to get a sponsorship from Novak. So today things are a little differently. So it was harder back then, but I think it's harder for the guys at the top, the Spencers and the Ryans. Once you get to the ultimate level, I think they have it harder than we did, because they're racing more cars, more classes. They're racing 7 different vehicles competitively, and they're expected to perform at the top all the time. When we were racing, traveling around in the 90s or early 90s, it was just you're expected to do well as you can, but there was really only a handful of people that could deliver all the time. And these guys like Ryan and Spencer, they're delivering in 7 different classes over and over again all year long. And especially Ryan's had a over 10-year run of doing that. And I think it's definitely much harder from that standpoint for them. And more credit should go to their skill level and their ability to keep doing it, because they're doing it for so long and in so many different classes. So you really got to take your hat off to the guys that are able to do that. In today's racing, it's tough. It's more competitive than it's ever been. There's more professionals than there's ever been. There's people that are so prepared now coming to these races. It's starting to be so competitive that the wins are really, really satisfying, because they don't come easy. And so I definitely really appreciate all the questions, but for sure, Ryan and Spencer, they got a little harder than we did back in the old days. But in terms of earning a sponsorship, we definitely had it harder back then to start. So definitely appreciate all the questions. That's what we have here for part 2. And thanks for everybody for chiming in here, and we definitely look forward to doing this again. And thanks for staying with us here at JConcepts.